Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining us once again, my good colleague, pal, co-host, friend. He's back, and one Mr. Brian E. Roach. What's going on, Brian?
I was going to try and do a Scottish accent after spending 12 days with the wonderful Scottish people, but I can't do it.
I'm not going to attempt it either. It'll be like some really bad Braveheart imitation. That's about the best I could probably do.
I was going to do Star Trek Scotty, but...
Oh, man. I've never been a Trekkie, man. I mean, it's a good way to start, like, not on topic, right? I've always been a Star Wars guy.
Absolutely.
I've never been a Star Trek guy.
I don't believe that you need to have alliance to either one. I'm a science fiction guy, and all science fiction is good to me.
Yeah, that works.
Speaking of which, so explain this to me. So the flight out, right? You fly from Newark in Jersey to Dublin, then Dublin to Glasgow in Scotland, right? That makes sense. It's linear. The flight back, right? So here's Newark, here's Glasgow. The flight back, which finger was Glasgow? This is Glasgow. I need to move these over. Okay, the flight back, you go from Glasgow to Frankfurt, Germany. The wrong freaking direction. Add an hour to the flight. Then from Frankfurt to Newark. So here's what I can tell you. If you have enough time on the plane to watch Dune 1 and Dune 2 in a row, and you still have 2 hours of flight time left, it's a long damn flight.
Yeah, you should have tried maybe for the Lord of the Rings trilogy, maybe the extended editions. You might have got those all. It would have fit. They filmed some of that stuff over there. You may have been in the same locations. That's pretty cool, though, man. Glad you enjoyed your trip. You got to see some of the Steelers football and stuff. Did you get anybody? I'm sure I know you. Your wardrobe is all Steelers, pretty much like mine. You walk in the closet. Did you have anybody over there that identified and was like, yeah, Steelers or whatever? Here we go.
So, friend that I went with, this buddy of mine that I went with, is a non-sports guy, right? So he doesn't understand, right? And he doesn't understand the terrible towel, which I brought with me, and I have pictures of myself. One wearing the towel on my head because the sun was blazing on me and I needed to use it as sunscreen to keep my neck from getting burned. But also on the top of a couple mountains I have holding it up. But so Scottish people, at least seven came up and specifically talked to me about the game.
Awesome.
That they had watched on the trail at various points in time. There were people from, let me think, Australia. And I know we have a frequent listener in Australia, who we gave a helmet to at one point. And so they commented on the fact that they were Steelers fans. Some people from the Caribbean that I met, and maybe a couple Americans. And so my buddy is kind of like, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, Steelers, man, it's everywhere.
Yeah, Steelers Nation worldwide, my friend. Well,
Absolutely.
A little while ago, before the season kicked off, right before the season kicked off, you and I were doing a show together, and we made some predictions.
We did.
Yeah, and we made, I'm trying to pull it up right now. I have it somewhere, but I have a feeling I moved the file, so I'm trying to find where I put it. As soon as I have it, I'm going to pull it up. But to the gist of everything, we had the Steelers, we were like, could they be unbeaten through the first 4 games? And here we are at 3-0, about to make a road trip to Indianapolis to face a Colts team that probably should be 0-3, that kind of lucked out against the Chicago Bears last week. They're a 1-2 team that's probably not playing the best of football against the Steelers team that appears to be surging and, didn't take us by surprise, but definitely took the national media by surprise. You've got some apologists out there now that just thought and throw dirt on top of them. We saw the Ravens schedule. Now, we are probably surprised about the Bengals. We did not have the Bengals anywhere near this territory. You were thinking that they may be second place in the AFC North.
You look at the Bengals. Look, I think we kind of said, yeah, they might lose to Kansas City, even though they have sort of had Kansas City's number. There's no way we predicted a loss to New England and a loss to the Commanders. No way. Like, I'm just telling you, this is, you want to talk about, playing down to teams or, losing to bad teams. That's losing to bad teams. They made, what's his name? Whoever the second pick was that the Commanders had, they made that guy look like a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels, man, what a strike to Terry McLaurin that he had. And we were talking about, I said I was leery. You had him at 3-1 to start out here, including wins over the Patriots and the Commanders. They get to draw the Carolina Panthers now to maybe have a get-right game.
Well, and they're not going to get right anymore. Andy Dalton's going to eat him up. Watch
revenge
that.
Game.
Andy Dalton's going to be like, yes, I was about to do the double finger there for Andy Dalton at the thing. He's going to go, yeah. Andy, you let me go. Screw you, Bengals. I'm going to come back and get you.
Yeah, and the Browns get the Raiders in Vegas. And then the Ravens have the Buffalo Bills, who they're going to host. And I think the Ravens got kind of lucky that the Cowboys, I think we now have a blueprint even that week 5.
What is going on with the Cowboys?
Cowboys, I think there's a blueprint there,
man.
They
stink.
At first we had the Steelers 4-0 with the loss maybe coming week 5, hosting the Cowboys for Sunday Night Football. And the more I look at that, unless you're looking past the Colts, which I don't think so, on the road, and I don't think Justin Fields, we're going to get to Justin Fields in a minute, but he's looking confident. He's looking comfortable. The offense is settling in. I know there's been a multitude of injuries and things that should have set this team back, but they're winning the winnable games right now. And I think everything, their heads are all screwed on straight, and they're going to, as long as they take care of business in Indianapolis and don't shoot themselves in the foot. The Bears should have won that game last week against the Colts. They shot themselves in their own foot. Just look at this statistic here, Brian. So I have this one for you. How does a team go 3 of 12 on third down and 0 for 1, basically their only attempt on fourth down, and win a game 21-16? How does that happen? The Bears had 43% of their third downs completed for a first down, and on the efficiency rating, 4 of 5 on fourth down. So 5 of those 21 that they didn't get, right? They had 9. What was the math? I got to throw the math thing up. 12, whatever. The other 5, they got 4 of those. So essentially, they got a first down on most of these. They were like 13 of 21 here, and well over 50%. Still couldn't win the game. 395 yards, 84 offensive plays by Chicago. They turned the ball over, of course. Yeah. Well, that's where you get into some of this. You had Caleb Williams sacked 4 times. He threw 2 picks in this game. But Anthony Richardson has not been good. And the Colts have been just running the football. 10 of 20, right on the money for 50%, 167 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. He was sacked once. It's a 39 quarterback rating. And I'm not, I'm a numbers guy a lot of times.
Yes, you are.
However, Richardson has not been good through the start of this season. So he, obviously he's the leader on this team. 36-73, 583 yards, which is 49.3% completion percentage. He's about at the same area he was before he got hurt and was out for the year last year. 3 touchdowns to 6 interceptions through 3 games. Those games being against the Texans at home, the Packers, the Bears, and now the Steelers. So how they get 3 home games in a dome to start. They don't even have to go out in the weather or anything like that. Hot weather, whatever. You know what I mean? But Richardson, 10 of 20, 17 of 34, 9 of 19. And he's not putting up major numbers. We saw Fields didn't put up one of his best games, really, against the Chargers, and that's a very strong defense. Yeah. So these numbers were like Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky type numbers, to put it into context. 3 picks against the Packers, and he's been sacked 4 times. He's not getting sacked as much on his dropbacks. Whereas I think Fields is somewhere like 1 in every 10, maybe still. I think that you got to get that just a little bit better, maybe 1 in 13. So, but he's elusive. He's athletic. He's running away. He's doing some of the things that Fields is doing, but not necessarily. Something I didn't get to speak about in the last show, and I know you weren't here. I had to go solo. We didn't have, I didn't have a co-host or a co-pilot for the post game. But something I went back and watched the game, and I had a feeling for it, but I wanted to see it to make sure I just wasn't like, you get these gut feelings, and you're just like, and then that's not what you saw. I saw Justin Fields stand tall in the pocket and deliver the ball. There were a few times where his mental clock went, and then he got sacked on the one. There was one on a safety blitz, Derwin James or whatever. That was a hell of a play call. You're not going to avoid that. Most of his throws in the pocket, pretty clean for the most part. Steelers are giving him time. He's starting to process what he's seeing. You could see him making the multiple levels of reads and finding different guys. He's using the middle of the field, including the Calvin Austin touchdown. Another one to Austin at some point. Pat Freiermuth. I was impressed, even more so than just being there in person. And there's plays that were left on the field, penalty and otherwise, although there weren't as many penalties because you didn't have to deal with Clete Blakeman's crew. But when you compare the two quarterbacks and with the way the Steelers defense has been playing, it's hard to not be, what do you want to say, like overly confident about their chances of just shutting down the Colts and coming out with another win and making this 4-0.
So let me start by saying I agree with everything you said. It's hard not to be, except we've been fans of this team for the last 5 years, and longer, obviously. But over the last 5-6 years, you just have this feeling in your you're like, they should win, but you get scared to get confident, right? You get scared to feel like you're going to win. You're like, I'm not comfortable being confident in this team. I'm more comfortable going, I don't know what's going to happen. You're not comfortable with it, right? And it makes you uncomfortable to feel confident, which is weird. That being said, this is a game they should win, right? And unlike in some seasons past, one of the big complaints that people would always come up with for Tomlin is he's losing these games that he shouldn't lose. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that has been true. We know the streak last year of losing to teams that they absolutely shouldn't have lost to. But they've been beating the teams they should beat, right? And the Chargers team that they played last week was without a doubt the best defense that they played. They had, I think at the time, the number 1 rushing attack in the league. That usually scares the bejesus out of us. Right? Oh my God, they're going to run on us. Instead, Cam Hayward becomes Cam Hayward, grown-ass man that he is, and the rest of the defense stands up as well. And they don't look like the number 1 rushing team in the league. I'm pretty sure they're going to win.
Well,
that's what I'll say.
Okay, so there was a reel, a short, whatever you want to call it, a TikTok we put out before the season talking about whether this could be the best front 7 the Steelers have had in a long time.
Yeah.
There was something else that I noticed in this game. And I know Justin Herbert got hurt, but for a while he was doing all right. Joe Alt, I know they had to make some shifts. Rashawn Slater ended up out, but they were good tackles, and they were keeping the pressure off until they couldn't. Because now the Steelers offense sustains drives, keeps the defense fresh, able to gain first downs, creative ways, creative coaching. The play calls all seem to be the right play calls at the right time. There might be 1 or 2 that seem like a flub, but it doesn't seem helpless now that this team can get first downs. There's 3rd and manageable, and you're just like, oh, geez, will someone at least run to the sticks? And we're seeing big chunk plays. You're seeing guys like, they only had like 20 yards rushing into the 4th quarter. It was very tough sledding. You still got guys like Spencer Anderson out there. I know Broderick Jones has been playing hurt. They're using Mason McCormick as an extra tackle to help. And then all of a sudden they just pound the rock. and Cordero Patterson comes out there because now Jaylen Warren has a different injury, and you haven't had to use Warren. There's even more. We were saying cautiously optimistic, but there's even more reason to maybe have some optimism because an Isaac Seumalo is coming back soon. You know that Jaylen Warren will come back to full health. Unfortunately, Troy Fautanu hurt. We don't know all of the extent, might be gone for the year as far as some reports. It seems to be all over the place. Yeah. Some kneecap, ligament, something or other weird type of thing. And, that's really tough it's tough to diagnose. If that happens to me or you, Brian, we're done. But the younger guys that are athletes, they may have the ability to recover from that a little faster. I know when I was in high school, I blew out my MCL, and that was several months. And then I was able to, unfortunately, knock me out of like basketball season because it was midway through. But, I was back on my feet 8 weeks or something like that. And it was just like, oh, let's run around and do whatever. And sometimes you just don't. We've seen with some guys, you don't recover from that all together. But aside from the point, the offensive line is still new. Zach Frazier is playing beyond a level of what everybody wanted to cry and complain. They didn't draft Creed Humphrey several years ago. This is their Creed Humphrey right now in the moment. Watch this guy. Every single play, he snaps the ball, and he's already pushing dudes back several yards in the opposite direction. He's putting them on roller skates. Spencer Anderson, I'm like, I don't even know that Spencer Anderson's actually out there playing. I don't know that there's been any change. James Daniels, we talk about the Pro Football Focus ratings, and I know Frazier was like the third best offensive lineman this week, and Daniels was the top guy. It's unreal what they're doing with this offensive line. They're able to give Justin Fields some time. I'm on board with Justin Fields if he can play consistently. Now you start to question, was what happened in Chicago? And I know in Chicago, they're probably not happy about, all of this that we're talking about. You let go of a guy, you gave up on a guy, and it may turn out that your coaches are the problem there in Chicago. We knew the coaching was a problem here in Pittsburgh with Matt Canada. As soon as he left, Kenny Pickett, the offense, 400 yards against the Bengals. And that's the reason why I didn't feel the Bengals fixed a lot of their issues with defense. Poor Joe Burrow, he's going to throw his arm out like Ben Roethlisberger, probably have 600 attempts because what else are they going to do? And they lost Trent Brown as one of their tackles too. So you got a patchwork offensive line that's already got new pieces. It's even more patchwork. And somehow Arthur Smith is putting this together. And I feel like at first I was like, Justin Fields, he's the right choice to stay in here because he can move. We don't know if Russell Wilson can move. Now I'm starting to get even more confident because he's standing in the pocket. He's not getting happy feet. He's making the reads, finding open players, has the time to find the open players. And if somebody's coming knocking on the door, he's not making negative plays. Everything is going and pushing down the field. The negative plays, there's some because the Chargers defense was very good, but I feel like this is the major difference with the Steelers offense. If you sum it up in one word, lots of positive plays compared to negative ones in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know whether the Chicago version of Justin Fields is going to show or whether they have simply figured out a better way to utilize him. This is what you see. What you see is he's doing what they're asking him to do. The fact that his defense keeps him either ahead or close in games means it is not normally on Justin Fields to have to find a way to win the game, right? And I know pundits have been talking about this all week, right? Is that this last game, the first two games, Justin Fields was a game manager. He's doing his bits and pieces. He is not making the big mistake and just taking what's there and allowing them to let the defense keep them in and score enough points to win, right? And what you saw in this third game against one of the best defenses in the league at the time was Justin Fields making plays to win the game, right? Mm-hmm. To put the Steelers in a position to win the game. The score is not actually as indicative as it could have been, right? If the Chargers had timeouts, they'd have scored another touchdown, right? instead of kneeling 3 times down there as they got close at the end of the game.
And the field goal at the end of the half. If Freiermuth holds on to the ball, not a 62-yard attempt.
Yes, exactly. It was a much more complete game. I think Arthur Smith is getting more comfortable with Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is getting more comfortable and confident within the system. I think as long as those two guys partner well, he can continue to do well. I think, it'll be interesting to see how things go once Russell is healthy enough. If Russell ever gets healthy enough, right? I mean, we don't know what the extent of the calf injury is. We don't know what the extent of the injury is. We don't know why it seems to be lingering on as much as it has been. But for whatever reason, he's just not able to go. And maybe when he is, we'll see what happens. I mean, you're looking at a team right now that conceivably could go into the Ravens game 9-0. I mean, they could, playing the way they're playing. I mean, we have to see, right? They have lost some guys, right? There's some questions about Jaylen Warren. Corey Trice just went on IR. The offensive line, obviously, with Fatanu and Isaac both being hurt. If they get any more injuries along that area, that's going to be problematic. So they can't. And obviously Alex Highsmith. That's an injury that while Nick Herbig looks like he can step in, it challenges their depth, right? You had a rotation that was working great when you had Highsmith, Herbig, and Watt. If you've really got Highsmith, Herbig, and Leal right now as your rotation, you don't know that you're going to get the same production out of Leal as you were getting out of Herbig as the third guy to come in and keep them fresh. But that all being said, let's just say that things remain sort of status quo. Every single game, including the Cowboys game that we had them losing, every single game is essentially a winnable game at this point. And they could go into the first Ravens game 9-0. How ridiculous is that? But it feels feasible right now. Knock on as much wood as you can that nothing else really causes problems. Yeah, there you go. But that's what I mean. I'm scared to be comfortable and confident about where this team is going. We're in uncharted territory, except for the 1 year we started 11-0 and then we went into the tank.
Don't get me started on that again.
Yeah, this is not what we're used to, though. We're not used to strong starts. We're used to slow starts, and then they pick it up in the middle of the season. If they have a nice strong start, there's just a lot to be positive about right now. And I still think there's plenty of growth on the offensive side of the ball that can be had, and taken advantage of. Maybe Calvin Austin really does have a breakout kind of a season, becomes the number 2 that, teams have to honor, have to respect, meaning they can't just always double George Pickens. If you have a solid core of Pickens, Austin, and Freiermuth, you have weapons, right? If the offensive line can get solid and the team can do what the team really wants to do, which is be a ground and pound kind of team, and run the ball down people's throats, this could be a very difficult team for everybody, with the defense playing at the level that it's playing at.
Yeah, man, I've got a couple things for you. Number one, I'm glad you brought up Calvin Austin, because I told this story on the pod. I'm not sure if you heard it, but it was, I was talking to my cousin. I was joking. He was, he's not high on Calvin Austin, right? And he's saying, blah, blah, blah. We need a wide receiver 2. We need this Brandon Ayuk, all this razzmatazz, right? And I said, Calvin Austin, anytime touchdown, book it. And I wish I would have. Plus 3,800, dude. It was like, I could have even threw $1 on that and it would have been well worth it. And then it wouldn't have happened, obviously, because I would have bet on it. So, you're only smart.
And no betting on it. You can't bet.
Yeah, I can't put my money where my mouth is, but it may have been a coming out party, man. It wasn't his touchdown catch wasn't like the only play. He had a quick out right before half. That was the accuracy of Justin Fields has just been almost kind of off the charts, to be completely honest. Right now, and these aren't all balls that are just going to guys in the flat, that are going to running backs, that are just going to tight. He's going downfield. He's getting some yards per attempt. He's getting some air yards. He's completed 73.3% of his 75 passes, 55 of 75 thus far this season. I would have never guessed that in a million years, because I was left with a bad taste in my mouth from the previous leftovers from the Chicago Bears in Mitch Trubisky, who I absolutely didn't like. Fields is not committing the same kind of turnovers he committed in Chicago, and perhaps maybe his offensive line was bad and his offensive cast was bad. I heard a caller in one of these shows, XM Radio, Steelers, Nation Radio, one of them, and they were talking about maybe the cast being better, and I made that argument that I was like, I don't know, he had pretty decent guys. You look at like somebody like a Cole Kmet, we knew he was a more proven tight end and put up some big numbers, and some other guys that he had over the time. And now I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, okay, and this isn't to go away from Kelvin Austin. I think I'm going to come back to him in a second. Three really great plays, but they're all because Fields is finding them. I don't think he's the hot route, maybe on the out that's before halftime, but the other two plays, he wasn't. Yeah. He finds them. He's the second or third read, particularly the one he could have went short and just went to Freiermuth. And that's the problem we had in the Matt Canada offense. It's the problem we had with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett would have went to Freiermuth instead of Austin, who went right by his safety and took it to the house for 55 yards. You also have, the completions here for Fields, 32 attempts, more than what he had with 23 and 20 in the first two games. Almost 74% completed before, 65 against the Chargers, 78.1 against the Chargers, against Asante Samuel, against Derwin James, against actual guys. Denzel Perryman, veteran, proven defensive players. I know Bosa didn't get in there a whole lot, but you still had Bud Dupree. You still had Khalil Mack. There was guys getting in his face. He had the one turnover that was ping-ponged around. If Najee wouldn't have made a second tip drill effort at it, probably doesn't end up in Bud Dupree's hands. I can't fault him for that. But all the time along, we've been talking about if we could get somebody that could complete, 60-ish% of their passes and get into the 250 range or so and throw like a touchdown and not turn the ball over. We were talking about this with Pickett, with Trubisky, with Mason Rudolph, anybody that's been in under center, not just shotgun. We see Fields under center. He looks like the guy we saw at Ohio State. He looks like the guy that we said could break the Buckeye curse of Buckeye quarterbacks drafted into the pros. And I know you were in love with CJ Stroud. Did you know what I'm seeing out there? I'm seeing the predecessor to CJ Stroud start to turn into a CJ Stroud pro when he stands tall in the pocket. I can't move away from Justin Fields, even if he has like one bad game and Wilson's healthy. As much as I've professed my love for Russell Wilson, he's up on the wall signing the contract there. I may never get to wear that jersey all year, because if Fields continues on, he's the guy who took all of these reps in training camp. He's the guy who is getting the lion's share of the work in preseason. He is now 3 weeks the starter heading into week 4, should prepare as the starter. He has the rapport. He has the timing. He has the confidence, too, I believe, of the coaching staff and in himself. That pressure wasn't necessarily, it might be on him. He's like, hey, I got to show what I'm going to do. And he's nervous in Atlanta. And now as it's going along, he's like, this is my job, and I'll be damned if you're going to take it from me. And if he continues to do this, and he's not just Trubisky, just throwing up stuff, trying, on a wish and a prayer.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can move away from Fields. Not only like this season, he may be slowly earning it the whole way along. Now, the other side of that is if it's Cinderella and it's clock strikes midnight and everything turns into a pumpkin, you're looking for the glass slipper, and it's like, whose shoe did this fit on? You're like, and you can't find the dude. It's nice to have Russell Wilson there, but I'm not getting rid of Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's going to have to just sit there and wait. And you're not paying this guy. You're not losing anything by having a guy the Denver Broncos are paying like $38-39 million to sitting on the bench. So there is absolutely it's good when you're winning, right? And the Steelers have been winning, time of possession, everything like that. The defense has been playing lights out. There's no reason to move on from Justin Fields, in my opinion. Just keep riding the hot
There
hand.
really isn't, which of course means that when Russ is healthy, Tomlin will put him in. But I mean, there's no reason to move on. You know, it really will depend, right? Like, because there has been a steady growth progression in each game. Like, he was better in the second game than he was in the first game. He was much better in the third game than he was in the first two games. If he continues to play essentially mistake-free football, if he continues to execute the offense at a high level, even if the points aren't, explosive 35, 42 points a game, right? Even if you're averaging in the 20s, which we're not yet, but if we manage to do, something along those lines, and they're eking out wins, and the offense isn't a problem, then there's no real reason to move off the hot hand at all, under any circumstances. If he regresses some, or they're just not putting it together that way, well, then I can see it happening. But
yeah, and who's to say he has a bad game or two? You're able to maybe put him on the shelf and revisit, give him some play. I think there's packages for him. But it made me wonder that a 35-year-old Russell Wilson, I always said Russell Wilson's strength was extending plays. Let's say he's healthy, but does the offensive line look more porous? Does Russ hold on to the ball too long? Does he have enough time to make the same plays the Fields is making? And is he capable of, you sneak him? Look at those two play fakes. The touchdown, like the RPO, the play action. I mean, play action has been that was almost non-existent with Matt Canada. It was like, run some play action. And the play action, you don't know Fields has the ball. He scores the touchdown. He walks right in. Later on in the game, what was it, like second, third down? Cordero Patterson, huge wide hole. And you see guys like Frazier and Anderson and Mason McCormick is on a double team on the one, and they're just opening these wide holes. And Najee Harris is just plowing through. I think Najee is making a case too for second contract at this time also. So, the best ability is availability. This guy's never missing time, never missing a game. And he's 100% healthy, unlike last year where we had a lot of criticisms with him running the ball. 55 for 209. He has 8 first downs so far. Fields has 7 rushing the football. It's incredible, man, to see this. And then Warren and Patterson have 3 and 2 as well. But those play fakes, those are the things that you have in the toolbox that Arthur Smith could pull out. I don't know that, I'm not sure, because we haven't seen Russell Wilson. So you said cautiously optimistic. We were fooled by preseason before. We still didn't have any touchdowns. Now they're starting to come through, and he had one with his legs and he had one with his arm. I still think that's more than what you're going to see from Anthony Richardson on Sunday. You're looking at the Colts. You look at the Colts offense. Okay. Jonathan Taylor got a lot of mileage on him. The dude he's a handful as far as running backs are concerned, right? He's definitely somebody that you're going to have to keep an eye on, but I don't think that the Colts have the 1-2 punch that they used to have there at running back. I mean, they had Zach Moss there before last year. You have Trace Sermon and Tyler Goodson behind him, and it's basically Taylor. It's going to be Taylor all the time. He's going to have to shoulder the load there. He has 51 rushes for 261 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he's had a little bit more success than Najee has thus far this season when you're comparing him head to head. Richardson's thrown for more yards on fewer attempts than Fields, but he's connected on big plays. And I don't think these are big plays that are going to be there for him, regardless of, the Steelers do have some issues here. Corey Trice, injured reserve, right? You alluded to that earlier. CJ Henderson, a former first-round pick, Jacksonville, I think. He's been bouncing around 4 teams. He's signed to the practice squad. He's a veteran player. Good for depth. You're not stuck with just James Pierre, because Darius Rush has been banged up as well. But you still have Dante Jackson. You still have Joey Porter Jr. Nobody's daring to throw at. Minka, nobody's throwing.
Well,
Nick is
let's be fair. They got Joey during that game. I mean, they got Joey to bite.
Passed off. I'm not sure. There was a breakdown somewhere. Yeah.
Joey bit. But it's okay. Like, it's what you expect. Joey is an aggressive young player, right? He was aggressive in trying to go for the fake, and he got burned, right? That it can happen. Minka's trying to go over and cover, and he can't get there soon enough, which made the one easy touchdown that they got. But I'll take that mistake, because Joey is still shutting everybody down. overall, right? But let's just acknowledge he ain't perfect yet.
No, not perfect. But Dante Jackson, I think, has been so underrated.
But wait a minute.
Here's
the other bit of this. Like last year, here's where I'm super duper excited about Joey Porter Jr. right now. Right? Last year, we saw what I would consider poor run support from Joey Porter Jr. I saw in that game Joey Porter Jr. coming up and being the guy to stop somebody behind the line.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I'm more excited about that than anything else.
No, dude, that was freaking amazing. And in fact, that was one of the last plays. Like, I was jumping around in the game. I wanted to see specific spots. I was watching a lot of the offensive drives. That was somewhere third or fourth quarter when they really needed it. The defense was flying around. I know that they knocked Herbert out. He wasn't 100%, but this was a challenge. It was somebody said a chess match, two very similarly styled teams that were going to try and possess the ball, run the ball, and then throw. This is a threat here. Richardson, as far as the big plays, he's got a big arm. He's connected with
obviously he threw something like 90 billion yards in that game.
Yeah, he's connected with Alec Pierce, who's their leading receiver right now. 9 receptions, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns. They drafted Adonai Mitchell. They've been trying to get Josh Downs back on the field. He's a second-year player. It's pretty dynamic, has a rapport with them too. And then you have Michael Pittman. So they have like four wide receivers that could be a threat here. Are they going to throw them all on the field at the same time? How's that going to work out when the Steelers are only bringing 4 guys on defense and getting pressure? I know Ryan Kelly, he's been off and on, maybe banged up. They got Quentin Nelson. You've got Will Freeze. Braden Smith and Bernard Ryman are your tackles on the outside. They're going to still have their hands full with Nick Herbig. He comes in there, and he may be playing at a level higher than even Alex Highsmith. I know he was fresh, and he's going against guys that are not only been in the game for a little bit. When you get in the third quarter, you got to go up against this fresh edge rusher that hasn't been playing as many downs, and then they have to shift guards to tackle and stuff like that. I understand that kind of dynamic, but we know that Nick Herbig can get after it. We know that he's capable. He's really going to make you start to question when that Highsmith contract starts to get through there. TJ Watt, approaching 30th birthday and stuff like that. When you start to talk about business of football in a couple years, that's off-season talk. Right now, I'm just happy to have him as another option.
Yeah, here's the thing about Nick. Like, nobody's game planning for Nick right now, or up until this game, right? You're watching film and you're aware Nick Herbig's there, can come off the bench. But when you're doing your film study, when your offensive line is trying to make their game plan, you're planning for Highsmith and Watt. Right. So Nick comes in and it's a different guy, right? They don't know how to react to him. I'm not surprised he had great success. This will be an interesting challenge, though, because the Colts are going to be game planning for Nick Herbig, right? Their offensive line is going to be planning for Nick Herbig, not Alex Highsmith. And this is to me a very big show game for Nick, right? This is a game where they expect him. Right? They're going to look at what he does well. They're going to look at what he's been able to do, and they're going to try and stop it. Right? Mm-hmm. And if he can still succeed, and I like Nick Herbig, right? If he can still succeed, all of a sudden, yeah, that is where it's like you're kind of going, well, what we got here?
Yeah, I just don't know that the Colts have it all together. I think it starts with the quarterback. I think it's going to be under pressure. If the Steelers only bring 4, you're trying to figure out where the other guys are that are on the field, and they're getting pressure with 4. That was the problem with Herbert. I think Herbert is a far better quarterback than Richardson. I actually would put Richardson behind even Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. And
well, you kind of have to after Cousins just beat whoever he beat.
Yeah, they've been playing well. They should have beat Kansas City, is what they should have been.
Yeah.
They went toe-to-toe with them, too. And I'm trying to think what the week 2 victory was, but they've got their stuff together. It's somebody that was on.
But let's talk about that for a second. Mm-hmm. Kansas City has survived every game this season by a curly black hair. Right? I'm telling you, a thin hair. Like, they have eked by these victories. And I mean, it says something that you're winning those games, right? But are you as scared of them as we may have been in years past? No. No.
I mean, Mahomes. Okay, look at this for Patrick Mahomes against the Ravens: 20 of 28. That good completion percentage, 291, a touchdown and a pick. Cincinnati, 18 of 25, 151, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. And then against the Falcons, 217, he's 26 39, 217, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Travis Kelce has been kind of absent. You kind of sit there, okay, Rashee Rice has been like their other guy, but I mean, Kansas City mostly has been doing it, some with defense, but they're having trouble getting to the quarterback too. As long as the Steelers' offense can sustain drives, the thing that we were worried about is they don't sustain drives. The defense gets tired. We know the defense for the Steelers is elite. We're at that point. I know they've been playing some teams that make them look maybe even more elite, but I have the very much confidence that they can harass guys like that because they're not blitzing as much. When they start to send the blitz and stuff like that, Mahomes like extends plays or picks up the packages or stuff. Okay, that could be a trouble. Same thing with Josh Allen, but it's not Myles Jack that's out there, or Michael Walker or Eric Rowe, these guys you had in the Buffalo playoff game. This is completely different. This team stays healthy on defense, and then the offense is able. We've said there's been big plays negated by penalties. Big play. Najee goes down. He's just like, man, I'm going to stay away from the goal line, and we just run out the clock and screw everybody's fantasy team. And we've seen Najee do that before, and that's fine. You don't put the defense back out there. Nobody gets hurt. Nothing's critical, and you close it out, and you live to fight another day. You get the rest, etc. Take the victory formation. Every single time I will take it over the points, but on paper and stats guys like me to pull some of this out, it makes the Steelers offense still look a little too weak, but we know they could have had 27 to 30 points. And if they could start doing that, if they go out and they score 34 points against the Colts, the turnovers start coming their way to get Richardson and maybe a pick 6 or something like that, you're going to look at this team a whole different way.
100%. I think I'm excited to watch what happens over the next three weeks. Right now, when you look at the agenda, and it'll make me sort of semi want to throw up to say this, the team that seems the most potent going forward actually is the Jets. Aaron Rodgers has played better than expected.
I still have my doubts with them too. And,
so do I.
And Morgan Moses just got, like, when the offensive linemen go down, you have to be concerned because it is a quarterback-driven league. But on the opposite side of that, it is a go get the quarterback-driven league when it comes to the defensive side. The pass rushers that make money, and you got the best in the business with T.J. Watt here in Pittsburgh. So. It's hard to not feel, and Atlanta Roberts comes in. Like, I think the play calling on the defense has been good too. That was a well-timed call for the inside linebacker to come on a blitz, which there wasn't a lot of those that were coming the other day or in the other games. Patrick Queen's playing at a higher level than we've seen too. So, but when you have TJ Watt, like you were referring to earlier, yeah, everything's on your side. I mean, how can it not be? And it's been quiet for Minka, very quiet. But what happens when that dude starts to, they're going to try and like put some of their offensive efforts and stopping TJ, and then all of a sudden you got Minka roaming around on the field because you're only bringing 4, and he gets to freelance and he gets to make some of these turnovers. I really feel like that is coming, and it's coming soon. It's just been a while since we've been able to brag about him, and it's by no fault of his own. When we don't call the defensive back names, it usually means there's not a problem there.
Yeah, that's the biggest difference. The biggest difference in this team right now is that between now and years past is you are not quite as worried about the secondary not holding up there. And before we had Joey, before we had folks, we had, like Steven Nelson, and we had whoever else was on the other side at the time. We had an aging Joe Hayden. It was like, you even in back in those days, you were always like, oh, well, defense is the front's got to get there quick because the back's not going to hold up. Right now, you kind of are not worried about the back end not holding up. Joey's locking down folks. I think we're in good hands all across. It's the first time it feels very complete. And again,
yes,
knock on all the wood that is available to knock on.
Yes.
That it's that injuries stay away from the back ends and the defense.
Yeah, Cam Hayward looks like a guy that deserves the money. Larry Ogunjobi has been playing well. Benton is playing well. Montravius Adams is playing well. The rotation when you need it is there. I need to talk about Colts defense real quick and whether or not now Jalen Jones, AFC Defensive Player of the Week with 2 interceptions off of Caleb Williams. But I look at the Colts. I look at their depth chart. I'm like, okay, Kwity Paye, and you have Laiatu Latu, who's the rookie, the first defensive player taken in the draft this year after like 16 picks or whatever. Edge rusher, he got his first sack last year. I don't see a lot of other guys that I'm really worried about. Taven Bryan, Grover Stewart, Tyquan Lewis, EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin. Those are decent guys that are in part of this 4-3 in the linebacker core. You look at the secondary, okay? Jalen Jones, he got that Defensive Player of the Week for the AFC. Until he did that, it's second-year player. You're waiting for him to kind of break out, maybe do something. Samuel Womack, the other corner that's opposite him in the nickel, Kenny Moore. You got Julian Blackman and Nick Cross as the safeties. This is going to be a problem for them. They're going to be spinning around if you have as clean of a called game with Arthur Smith. And the thing I must say, I mean, I cannot emphasize enough the difference with the coaching this year. I feel like when you get to halftime and it's like a 10-10 or something like that, or the Steelers might even just be down a field goal or something like that, you feel like they're going to come back because you know if the offense hasn't been working, Arthur Smith makes adjustments. Matt Canada cannot make adjustments. Greg Roman, I was talking about him with the Chargers. I was like, not sweating it. He cannot make adjustments. It's very, very, very strict on what they're doing, and they kept doing the same stuff, and it was to success because Terrell Austin makes defensive adjustments. I feel like the Steelers have been able to make the adjustments at halftime in all 3 of these games and call the game to the strength of the players that they have out there and what they see against these opponents. You know, you pull out this Surface tablet immediately. You know, they don't have to print out the sheets anymore and circle things with the marker. They got this stuff almost instantly in their hand, and they're making these adjustments like almost in real time. It is refreshing, to say the least, to see this. It does make me more, maybe more bullish, more optimistic about this team. This is the best I've felt about any of these games. I had some worries with the Falcons. Broncos, maybe not as much, but we know up in the Mile High, anything goes there, right?
Anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. Chargers coming in. Harbaugh, new coach, a whole new regime, revamped offensive line. Herbert has the high ankle sprain, but the defense, you're just like, oh man, we still don't know if Justin Fields, he goes out there and has one of his best days as a pro quarterback. And if he goes out there now and he does the same thing against the Colts, you're just going to start thinking you're going to get to this Cowboys game because I got to see who Dallas has here. Let me pull them up here in a second. I just sitting here like the same way you are. I just put an article on the website. Was that today? I may have written it yesterday, published today or something like that. But it was like, how much longer can they extend this streak? And you look at the rest of the Steelers schedule. You got the 2 New York teams with the Jets and the Giants. You got the Cowboys. You got the Raiders. And it's like, as long as you handle business and you don't get in your own head and there's no trap game type of BS or anything like that, you very well could go all the way to the first game being played for when it comes to AFC North Division opponents against Baltimore, 9-0. And if you, good luck, you're coming in and playing Baltimore by that point, 9-0 at home too, right? Yeah, right after a bye week and the Commanders on the road. They could just keep streaking straight on through. Then you get the Thursday night game in Cleveland, and you know what? Cleveland gave up like 7 or 8 sacks to the Giants.
Lost to the Giants. Come on.
To the Giants.
Lost to the Giants. I look. I've been trying to give them a lot of credit. I know Myles Garrett is not 100%. All right, I get that, and I also know Deshaun Watson sucks. So okay, they lost to the Giants.
Both true.
The Giants.
Cowboys.
It's almost worse than the Bengals losing to the Commanders.
Here's something here's a programming note for you. I forgot about this. The Cowboys play Thursday night. They play on the road against the Giants this week. So they get a little bit of a mini bye before they have to come to Pittsburgh. They have back-to-back road games. So they could be a little more fresh, but these Thursday night games too, man, if you're not careful, you end up with players that get hurt and then aren't available for the next game either. But it's a division game for them, and they got to play on the road. Not necessarily always the easiest thing. And
they're in trouble right now. I mean, they're not playing well.
Yeah.
So they need to figure some stuff out.
So not to look too far down ahead, but you know what, Brian? It's like a high five to you, my friend, a pat on our backs. We're not always just, blowing smoke here. It feels good to be a little bit validated. Let's see what the Steelers could do in Indy this weekend. Keys to the game, obviously time of possession. Get home to the quarterback. I think this time create some turnovers and limit the turnovers, especially. I don't know that this is going to be it's tough to say. They let let me look at this. They let Richardson throw the ball. Only 20 times this time. So they had 33 carries in this game. I want to say in the previous game is very much the same script, but they might have been playing behind some. Yeah, only 18 carries in that game versus 34 attempts for Richardson. So if the Steelers, if they can get ahead and they start to chew some clock, Colts are going to be in trouble if they have to rely on Richardson to throw the ball in order to be competitive in this game. So I like the chances.
The Steelers, the recipe for victory is much the same as it's been, and they haven't been able to put it together, but this year they are. Don't turn the ball over, play good defense, get off the field, and extend drives, right? It's like defense, get off the field, play stout. Offense, don't turn the ball over and put the defense in a bad position, and extend drives so that the defense stays moderately fresh. If those four things happen, that's the path to victory, right? If they go off the rails with some of those, if they start turning the ball over too much, if Justin has a bad day, or if they get fumbleies in the game, that's a bad sign, right? And they still are have a hard time recovering, because it's not a team that's really designed to, if they get way behind, to play catch up. That's not who they want to be. It's not what they seem to be. But I'm less concerned. They feel like they're in control of what they're doing. As long as they stay and play within themselves and play their game, I think they're in really good position.
Yeah, I was going to say with Jonathan Taylor, I think he's had 100 no, because he's at 250-ish, right? So he does not run for 100 in every game. The first game against Houston, he only ran for 48 yards. He has had 100 or more in the last two, with 110 against the Chicago Bears. So they could bottle him up just like they did J.K. Dobbins. There's no reason to not believe it, especially, we're not talking enough about like Peyton Wilson and
Quentin Nelson doesn't like seeing Cam Hayward on the other side of the
Yeah, no, he doesn't.
I'm just telling you right now. He's tired. He wants Cam to retire. Because Quentin Nelson is a very solid offensive lineman, right? He just doesn't want to see Cam Hayward.
Yeah, the last thing before we wrap on this show is special teams. I mean, Chris Boswell, there's never been a 60-plus made in Heinz Field. They tried it. Tomlin went for it. There wasn't a lot of wind, but it still has to travel. We know the way it swirls. They're in a dome again. Like, this guy's a weapon from anywhere.
Did it have the length?
You know what? Tony Romo said no, but in person, it was on the opposite side of the stadium. If it would have been where I sit, I would have told you 100% for sure if it would have made it. It looked close. It looked like it had distance. It just didn't have direction. And reportedly, Boswell threw a helmet at halftime. He was a little teed off about he knew he could have had it. And he's the most accurate long-range field goal kicker in NFL history. Believe that or not. You're going to put him in a dome. Corliss Waitman's out here kicking 52 yards per average punting.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah. So special teams has been also, we're talking offense. We're, all boats rise with the tide. The defense is already here. Now the offensive boat's rising, but they're looking over here. Like, special teams is like up here. I want Calvin Austin to break one too. I'm getting greedy, but I digress. Calvin Austin could start filling in here as the wide receiver too. He showed a lot. And I guess Van Jefferson, he was a little banged up in this game. There was some report, I think he came off, and that's why Austin started getting on the field. And as soon as Austin got it out there on the field, he took over. Van Jefferson played 11 plays the other day. That's about 16%. Kelvin Austin was out there for 54%, 37 plays. Of course, Pickens played 50, and Scotty Miller played 38 also. And Scotty Miller made some plays.
Yeah.
You know what we're missing? We got one more guy that might actually get on the field knock on the wood, do the little
Roman
dance
Wilson.
in the circle. Yeah, get that guy on the field too, because look at all of the young players, the first and second year players of this Omar Khan draft class is Joey Porter, Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington. I'm probably missing somebody else
Nick
that's out
Herbig.
there. Nick Herbig. This year's Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick. Who else am I missing here, Brian? Peyton Wilson.
Peyton Wilson, yeah.
Now get the other Wilson out. You get Roman Wilson out there. It's been pretty unbelievable to see. Everybody likes to bitch and complain about all the draft picks that don't work. Oh, the first round picks haven't worked. Okay, Broderick Jones, I think, is still playing hurt, playing out of position. But you take a look at the draft classes, and it's just like, wow, these last few draft classes have been pretty spot on from Omar Khan. I know that like guys like Logan Lee and Ryan Watts, they're not going to be out there this year. You might get Fatanu back, but right now you got to be very happy with the way that this has been working out. I mean, you can't complain much more, especially with the way he fleeced the Bears to get Joey Porter Jr., right?
I'm glad you brought that up. So I'm sitting, where was I? I'm at a place called the Inn of Orkney. It's right near this place called the Bridge of Orkney, right, in Scotland. And I'm having my lunch, which is this little ham sandwich. And sitting at a table across from me is a guy in a Chicago Bears hat. And I have Steelers gear on, right? And he looks at me and he does this. He just goes. And I had to say, I said, what's the side for? The Chase Claypool trade or the Justin Fields trade? And he goes, I just don't want to ever trade with you guys again, ever.
Yeah. I mean, a sixth round. The rest of the NFL, nobody wanted to pick Fields, and I know Mike Tomlin is huge on mobile quarterbacks, and we've always kind of criticized that, but he wants guys that can extend plays. And I've always said you got to have a guy that stands in the pocket. That's why I liked Mason Rudolph so much more. And you saw what he was capable of doing when Pickett and Trubisky weren't just, making a read and then tucking and running. And Josh Dobbs did the same thing. By the way, so yeah, the Bears fans should be a little nervous. And I think it's going to end up being a fourth round. Isn't it conditional up to fourth round pick, depending on how much playing time or whatever he gets? But regardless, the other two guys, Corey Trice and Spencer Anderson. Now, Trice had an interception. Hopefully he could come back. It seems like injuries have been his bugaboo and why he fell into the seventh round to begin with. Spencer Anderson's been playing lights out. Those were the rest of the 2023 draft picks for the Steelers. And you never know if Fatanu gets back out there. These are like complete classes. This is the kind of players that you get that are playing above the line, that are playing on rookie contracts, that are contributors. The Steelers had to put a bunch of these guys in to start. And now you're starting to build depth. And you've got guys that could play like a Peyton Wilson in a rotation with the Landon Roberts, for example. Keanu Benton in a rotation there with Hayward Ogunjobi. And you're starting to see how that affects everything overall. Some wise or shrewd veteran moves, adding like a Van Jefferson or a Cordero Patterson. This has been, it's very exciting stuff. And I even think, too, that if Fields ends up just looking a little more ahead, if he ends up with something where he's re-signed, Fields is not getting 50, 55, or 60 million on a contract, and nobody else is going to pay him that regardless
Probably
of what
20.
he does here. Yeah.
Right.
And that'll make the Steelers competitive for years to come. It's not quite a rookie deal, but it's not quite we're going to throw the whole franchise out the window type thing like the Lamar Jacksons and Burrows and everything else.
If you've got Justin Fields, and it depends on, obviously if Justin has a solid season, gets through the rest of this season and is performing at the level he's performing at right now, right, which is good enough, but not upper tier, right? If he's doing that and he's playing solid, consistent football, it's a question of what does he want too, right? You could see something like a 60 million 3-year contract. You could see $100 million 5-year contract.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Steelers would be willing to do that. But if Justin's like, well, no, let's go with the 3 because I'm going to show you over those 3 that I need to be in the $40 million range. Well, I'll worry about that problem when it happens. But yeah, even no matter what he does this year, at the end of the year, he's not going to be a $40 million guy.
No. And one more hats off. This guy, Mike Tomlin, the job that he's doing. I think you've got to recognize he puts this together. Everybody has this team as being down in the dumps. We, of course, looked at the early part of the schedule. You look at the late part of the schedule now, like you said, you don't have like any qualms about the Chiefs getting their act together and Andy Reid and their ability. And the Chiefs are defending Super Bowl champions, trying to go for 3, etc. There'll be a problem. But the Eagles, and now you're starting to think like some of these AFC North games.
Some of these games that you thought were going to be losses are winnable games at this point.
Mm-hmm. And some of the teams, like already with the Falcons, you start to think to yourself, hey, maybe the Steelers might not have been as lucky as you think. I think at least 2 of these teams quality opponents, and the Broncos and Sean Payton with the head coach and rookie quarterback Bo Nix, they go out there and do some things last week too that make you turn your head and think, well, maybe they're not a bottom of the barrel team. Even the Panthers.
Who did they play last week?
Who did they beat? They embarrassed. Hold on here. I'm scanning. I'm looking. They were in the late window somewhere, I thought. Where the hell's Denver at on this list? I'm looking at week 3. I'm sorry. Of course. I'm like, they played the Steelers. I got it here. It is Broncos beat the Buccaneers. That's right. And they got after. That was the other thing. These quarterbacks around the league last week, it was not uncommon to see guys getting sacked 5, 6, 7, 8 times all the way around the league. So the Steelers are bringing the heat. A lot of other teams are bringing the heat. I mean, Baker Mayfield couldn't do anything, but that's the kind of contract I see maybe in the future for Justin Fields. I know we're getting really ahead of ourselves with that. So, Brian, man, we're up against it. Always great to get on with you, discuss some football, fill in some blanks that I wasn't able to do solo on the post-game show. Folks, go back and check out some of my thoughts from that. The show hasn't aged. A lot of that's applicable to what we're going to see this week against the Colts. But we thank you for tuning in, watching or listening wherever you may be. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My friend, closing thoughts.
Before we sign off. All right. So Ravens, Bills. Let's say the Bills are playing ridiculously well. Bills beat the Ravens. Let's just say that they managed to go into Baltimore and beat the Ravens. There's no good reason for the Browns to lose to the Raiders. There is no good reason for the Browns to lose to the Raiders. And yet the Raiders beat the Ravens. So let's say that the Browns have to go to Las Vegas and they lose. All right. And then the Bengals shouldn't lose to the Panthers, but Andy Dalton will cause victory. So the AFC North goes, 1-3, the Steelers being the victory. And all of a sudden we have a 3-game lead in the division.
Man, will that not be beautiful? I was really counting on Dallas to do some things there too. Ravens pulled one out. I mean,
I had to give my neighbor across the street a bunch of crap. I'm like, what are you doing to me here? Your stupid Cowboys are like wrecking my whole weekend here. The Browns managed to goof up and lose to the stupid Giants, and the Bengals, can't win a game. And your stupid Cowboys can't beat the Ravens for me? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I mean, did everybody have on their bingo card that the Vikings would go 3-0, 34-7 over the Texans? The 3-0 teams, the Seahawks. It's another team that people try and count out. Now, you got new coaching. I used to think the stability and Pete Carroll and Mike McDonald is doing a job there. He leaves the Ravens. Ravens are still a team that is in flux when it comes to maintaining a lead and playing good defense in the fourth quarter. That's the same problems they've had for a few years. Seem to still have some leaks and some cracks there. I mean, the Cowboys couldn't get it together. Of course, the Steelers are 3-0. The Buffalo Bills are 3-0. And who's the other team? Oh, the Chiefs. The Chiefs eked out. You don't think that all of these teams will be 3-0 1 week from now, but I think the Steelers will still be in that conversation. We'll see about everybody else. But yeah, Buffalo. We're all like, we're pulling for Buffalo right now. As tough as that may be, they're not supposed to have any wide receivers. Josh Allen is not supposed to be playing this well. Instead, he's playing lights out. It's pretty crazy.
Yep. I'll be doing a lot of Buffalo. I can't bring myself to root for the Raiders, but I'm not going to root for the Browns either. So,
hey, you're not going to root for the Raiders. We don't even know if Gardner Minshew is going to get benched and they're going to go to Aiden O'Connell. So, yeah, there's all kinds of developments there. So, folks, like I said, thank you for tuning in. Brian, thanks for joining us once again. Always great to have you on.
Happy to be back. It's always good to come back from a long trip and sleep in your own bed.
Yeah, it is. I'll tell you that. I feel that same way even when I'm grabbing hotels for like Steelers games and stuff like that. It's just, there's something different about being at home. So I'll definitely say that. Maybe the Steelers as well. You know what? Now 1-0 at home. Let's start becoming that team that's hard to beat at home. Renegade was amazing the other day, my friend. I know you'll get to enjoy it some more. I know Patrick Queen loved it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when they do get back, but I'm not looking that far ahead. I'm looking to see how many terrible towels are going to be in Indianapolis. I might be one of them that's there. I'm still like to be determined if I'm going to head out that way to Lucas Oil Stadium. 1:00 game. Oh, our 2%ers. I almost forgot. If you're not in this area that's in gold, you're going to need to be there. You're going to need to have, if you're getting this without Sunday ticket, over the antenna, local CBS, 1:00. It's basically the state of Indiana, state of Ohio, most of Kentucky, West Virginia, most of Pennsylvania, on down into Virginia,
What's
North Carolina.
Blue game?
Part of,
Is that the Eagles?
I honestly have to look it up because I have this chopped off. Let me look at their site real quick. 506sports.com, of course, courtesy providing that image. Minnesota at Green Bay is in the blue, and Denver against the Jets
Minnesota,
in the red.
Why the hell is Philly showing Minnesota at Green Bay?
I'm trying to figure out like how you get some of these. That's an NFC. Those are two NFC teams on CBS in the early window too. So I wonder what game they swapped in order to have those two.
That's lame.
Yeah,
lame.
It is. You would think the Steelers. Well, Packers. That's
still lame.
It's still not even that much. It's a pretty good split there, I would say, as opposed to some weeks when it comes to the territories and the regional broadcasting. That's probably pretty fair for the most part. I know it's lame for you, dude. I don't know why Philly would be showing.
I have
Minnesota, Green Bay.
Not DirecTV. I have the YouTube version of Sunday Ticket.
Yeah. All right, my dude. That's going to do it for us. I'm looking at my phone real quick to see. Seumalo. I don't think did Seumalo go on injured reserve officially? I don't think he did. So he's going to be eligible to
Tomlin said he's working his way back.
Yeah. So he's going to be able to come back. He's not in that window where they're going to have to wait for him. So a lot of like little extra news and notes. Thanks for tuning in for us, folks. Till next time, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. We encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.